This spiral pork is a chashu on every great bowl of ramen, and you can make it at home. Buy it belly slab dry, roll it tight, tie it, slice it cold, and the same beautiful spiral appears every time. Pat 700 grams of skinless pork belly dry and lay it flat side down. Run shallow vertical cuts across the surface at 1 cm intervals, just deep enough to score it so the slab rolls without fighting back. As you roll it into a tight cylinder, press the spiral down at every turn so no air pockets run along the fascia. To secure it, you can use a meat net, which is the quickest and easiest option, but today I'm going to show you the more traditional method, tying it with butcher's twine. Start by wrapping the twine around one end and tie a few knots to secure it. Hold the longer side straight, then twist it around your fingers to make a loop. Pull the rest of the twine through the loop to make a slip knot and slide it under the pork about 2 cm or 1 inch away from the first knot. Pull it until it's tightly around the pork, but not so tight that it bulges or cuts. The slip knot should be in line with the first knot. Repeat these steps for the entire length of the pork. And one quick answer to the question everyone asks: do you really have to tie or net the roll? Yes, if you want to keep the spiral. Without the tension, the roll uncoils and you get a loose tangle of belly strips instead of a clean cylinder. The spiral chashu you see in a good ramen shops is not hard, it's just slow. And what you build at home sits on a completely different level than the packaged, mass-produced chashu sold on a shelf in Japan. No matter where you live, you can make ramen shop chashu in your own kitchen, as long as you can get pork belly block. When you get to the end, pull the twine over the swirl and across the base. You can cut the twine now, about 3 times longer than the pork. I'm just going to weave it underneath and tie another knot on each line. This keeps everything in place. Then pull it back to the top and tie it together with overhang from the first knot. This tight cylinder is the whole trick. Slice it cold later and every piece shows that ramen shop spiral of lean and fat. That is your first milestone and you're already past the hardest part. Place it inside a deep pot and pour in cold water until it is almost fully submerged. Start cold, not hot. You would expect to drop pork into boiling water, but we will not because the slow rise pours blood and protein out. Bring it up over medium heat and hold it just below a simmer, around 85 to 95 degrees Celsius for 5 to 6 minutes. Watch the grey brown foam climb and skim it patiently. The first 2 minutes of foam is where most of the pork smell lives, so do not skip this. When the foam stops coming in any real volume, pull the pork out and rinse it under cold running water. That is the wash done, and any oils went down the drain with it. At the same time, bring a second clean pot of water up over medium heat to roughly the same range. Heating fresh water to around 60 to 70 degrees Celsius before the pork goes in matters, because cold hot or hot cold is thermal wet blush. This time warm water keeps the surface calm and lets the collagen start its long conversion without a sudden contraction. While you wait, prep your aromatics. Once the water hits the zone, slide the rinsed pork in and turn the heat to low. Drop in the green tops of the naganegi leek. Add about half of a roughly chopped onion. About 25 grams of thickly sliced ginger. Drop in 3 whole peeled garlic cloves. And finish with a small splash of rice vinegar. The negi and onion are here to pull out any lingering pork smell, not to flavour the table, and the rice vinegar works on that smell without touching the finished taste. Set a droplet right on the surface of the liquid, cover the gap with a pot lid if you like, and simmer on low for 1 hour. Here's the single most important line in this whole recipe: never let this come to a rolling boil. The zone is 80 to 85 degrees Celsius, tiny bubbles rising from the bottom, the surface barely shimmering under the drop lid. That is the first hour done. Lift the drop lid and flip the roll over so the other side is now submerged. The part of the meat above the liquid line dries faintly, so flipping once splits the time evenly and cooks the cylinder through. At this point, we're also going to ladle out 250 ml of braising liquid and set it aside. It is okay if the pork is not fully submerged, but if more than a third of it is exposed, top the pot up with a little water. Replace the drop lid and braise another hour at the same gentle temperature. Now build the marinade in a separate saucepan. Pour in the braising liquid you just reserved. Add 4 tablespoons of sake, 4 tablespoons of mirin, and 1.5 tablespoons of light brown sugar. Stir in 1 tablespoon of honey. Now the star anise. This one is love or hate. If you love it, add a whole piece. If you're on the fence, break off just a quarter for a softer lift. If you're not a fan, skip it. Bring it to a gentle boil for about 1 minute, just until the raw alcohol smell cooks off. And keep your nose over the pot because it burns off faster than you expect. Turn off the heat, then add 125 ml of Japanese soy sauce and 1 teaspoon of oyster sauce and mix. It kills me to use this much soy sauce in one dish, but don't worry, I'll show you how to repurpose the marinade so that nothing is wasted. Okay, our second hour is up, so turn off the heat onto the main pot, lift the roll out, and slide it into a large zipped up bag. Pour the contents of the saucepan into the bag along with another 25 grams of sliced ginger, then press the air out as you seal it. All contact between the liquid and the meat is the whole point of marinating it in the bag rather than soaking it in a pot. Let the sealed bag cool on the counter until it is just warm to the touch. Then move it to the fridge and marinate for at least 12 hours, ideally overnight. Then strain the pork broth into a container. We'll keep this in the fridge too, and that is the end of day 1. The next morning, pour the fully chilled roll out bag and save that marinade. Do not throw it out because half of a bowl of ramen is hiding in it. Cut off the twine or slide off the meat net and slice with a sharp knife. Cold is non-negotiable here. A warm roll falls apart on the knife and you lose the spiral. Look at that, every slice shows the same spiral of lean and fat. Cut them about ½ centimeter thick, the standard ramen shop slice, the best balance of sauce grip and pork flavor. If you're eating on rice or simply want a meatier bite, you can go a touch over a centimeter. The rugged end pieces are not waste. They go straight into charhan or chashudon. For storage, sandwich each piece in between a piece of parchment paper so that they don't stick together, and stack them into an airtight storage container to protect them from freezer burn. It freezes well for 1 month. To reheat, throw it naturally in the fridge, then drop it into hot broth or heat it with the torch. Now the part you do not want to waste. After 2 hours of braising, you have 3 things, not 1. You have the chashu, you have the braising liquid, which is a pork stock full of collagen and umami, and you have the marinade, which after 12 hours with the pork is essentially an 80% done ramen tare. Most chashu recipes stop at the slice, we're going all the way to the bowl. So let us build an actual bowl of ramen from the leftovers. First, transform the marinade into a kaishi. Pour all of it into a small saucepan and heat over medium heat until it's just below a simmer, around 85 degrees to 90 degrees Celsius, small bubbles starting, but never a rolling boil. Skim the small amount of pork protein that coagulates, then add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Drop it to low for 10 minutes, turn off the heat, cover it, let it come back to room temperature and refrigerate. Now we have a kaishi that can be used instead of tare. Heat 250 ml of the pork broth in a small saucepan over medium, targeting 80 to 85 degrees Celsius, small bubbles just around the edges. Warm the serving bowl with hot water, then pour it out and add 4 tablespoons of the kaishi. Now, ladle the hot broth into the bowl, stir it with the kaishi, and taste with a spoon. Adjust with a splash of soy or a pinch of salt. This soup runs noticeably sweeter than a regular shoyu ramen because the chashu marinade is sweet. So, tune the sweetness to your taste, and salinity shifts from batch to batch. Boil the noodles in parallel. Bring at least 1.5 liters of water to a boil and cook one portion, 120 to 150 grams of medium thick ramen noodles, about 15 to 20 seconds earlier than the package stays because they keep cooking in the hot bowl. Shake the noodles dry with 2 or 3 firm shakes and do not rinse them with cold water. Lower the noodles into the bowl, then layer the toppings. The beautiful slice of chashu, a seasoned egg, narutomaki fish cake, menma, a couple of sheets of nori, and a scatter of thinly sliced green onions. And this is my ramen chashu. This is what a Sunday slab of pork belly looks like turned into a full ramen bowl. Make this tonight. Google Ramen Chashu Sudachi for the full printable recipe with exact measurements and timing. Want even more delicious recipes? Grab my free cookbook from the link in the description. Okay, let's go over the ingredients one more time. And if you're ready to cook, grab the written instructions by clicking the full recipe box with a picture that's about to pop up on your screen. It includes exact measurements, every timing, and notes for getting each step right. Next time, I'm making shoyu ramen. See you then.